Good morning. Buckle up for the best answers to the question you've always been asking yourself, maybe. People of Reddit, what is a surprisingly unknown survival fact that everyone should know? Pack a whistle. There's no chance your voice will hold out yelling at the top of your lungs, and whistles carry long distances. Especially handy if you've injured yourself, and need to rely on others finding you. SOS in Morse code is, dash, so 3 short blasts, 3 longer ones, 3 short, pause, and repeat. This is an especially handy and harmless device to give kids that are along for a hike, along with, if you get separated, stop walking and blow the whistle lots, and we'll come to you. If you get stuck in your car in the snow, stay with your vehicle. Hypothermia makes you delirious and you can wander the wrong direction and freeze to death. Your vehicle is also a lot easier to locate than you are. When I was younger and traveled a lot, a friend from Minnesota told me to keep an unopened bottle of water, a blanket, matches, candle and a rope in the car during the winter months. A wax candle will provide enough heat to keep the car warm enough to survive with the blanket around you. Tie the rope to the car if you get out to relieve yourself, that way you can find your way back by following the rope, if snowing. Water, well, that is obvious. Most subway platforms have a space for a person to crawl under in case they fall on the subway's tracks. So if you fall off the edge of the platform and onto the tracks, instead of trying to climb back up, if you see a train coming, there's a crawl area underneath. It might be tight, and you'll certainly get dirty, but better than dying. This is actually really informative, thanks for sharing. Unfortunately so. They need signs and crap. No one knows that they won't be injured. It's instinct to climb back out. Why have I never heard of this? When wild camping and hiking in Scotland, some Dutch outdoor guide told us to always keep tampons to start a fire. He was so right. In a wet environment where all the leaves and branches are moist and the wind blows like crazy, we sometimes needed 1,5 hours to start a fire, and we needed the fire to at least have a warm meal in the night. They're the best fire starter. They're lightweight and tiny, easy to carry. You can pull them apart and there's a lot of easily burning material that you can use as a fire starter. They also frequently come in sealed plastic wrappers, so are basically waterproof. Here's one you can use every day: know your exits. People will naturally want to go out the way they came in because it's the only exit they remember, especially at places like concert venues. You don't have to be paranoid, just take a quick glance and make a mental note. In the off chance an emergency happens, it could mean the difference between a swift and safe exit or being trampled in a panicking mass of people. During the winter, it is way better to be slightly cold than it is to sweat. If you start to sweat, you can go hypothermic way faster. Reminds me of a quote from Bear Grylls. I need to work quickly before hypothermia sets in. But not too quickly, because then I'll start to sweat, the sweat will freeze, and then hypothermia sets in. If you somehow are in a situation where you feel like you could drown and have no energy to go on, turn on your back and do the backstroke. Saved my life while at the beach last week after getting sucked out by rip current. Float for your life. I used to teach swimming, and for people who aren't comfortable floating, focus on keeping your belly up, like a balloon full of air. If you spread out your arms, it might make things easier. If you can't fully backstroke, because maybe you can't stay on top of the water well enough, or you can't extend your arms like that, swim like a frog by lifting your arms above your head and then pushing them back towards your body. Think jumping jacks. If you are drinking plenty of water but still showing signs of dehydration, headache, fatigue, muscle aches, blurred vision, stumbling around, you may be low on electrolytes. Salty foods can really help with this, but oral rehydration salts such as Pedialyte work even better and should probably be in more people's backpacks. Disclaimer: those symptoms aren't limited to dehydration and can also occur due to heat exhaustion, hypothermia, or altitude sickness. You just solved a big problem for me. Holy sheet. I forgot about my South Strip drop. It's like Pedialyte balanced for adults. I drink it in the backcountry, after long runs, or when I make poor decisions regarding whiskey. It helps so much. Exposure and dehydration will duck you up much faster than hunger. Bring spare socks. Your feet will rot if you don't. Barrel cactus in the Sonoran Desert are not full of water as is commonly portrayed. Instead, they are full of acidic solutions that induce vomiting and diarrhea if consumed. These can easily be fatal for a dehydrated person in the desert. The barrel cactus fruit, by contrast, is one of the most agreeable edibles in the cactus world. They are easy to pick, thornless, and tasty. I was led to believe that you should drink cactus juice. It'll quench you, nothing's quenchier, and it's the quenchiest. When defending yourself, there is no need to fight fair. I tell my son 14 this. Obviously you do not get violent until someone else does, but if someone has the intent of hurting you, it is fair game to punch them in the balls or worse. If by worse you mean castrating them with your bare hands, then yes. You can squeeze relatively safe water out of moss. Obviously you should still boil it and it's going to have some dirt, but it way better than drinking out of a steam or puddle. The amount of research I've done on moss for my thesis proves that this is indeed a safe method. You seem like you have an interesting doctorate. What was the subject of your thesis? If you accidentally disturb a beehive or wasp nest and are being swarmed, do not run for water. It seems intuitive that jumping in water will keep the bees off you, but actually they will wait for you to resurface and resume stinging you. Instead, run as fast and as far away as you can. Bees/wasps are territorial and will not easily leave their home range. So once you leave their comfort zone, you're pretty much safe. Or set yourself on fire. Taps forehead. Use a cotton ball soaked in Vaseline, or a tampon. A mirror is the best way to signal for help. You can use the reflection of the sun directed at a boat or plane like your sibling would to annoy you. The proper way to use a mirror to signal for help is to hold up one hand with a peace sign and position it so that whatever you are trying to signal can be seen between your fingers. Then shine the light from the mirror on your fingers. This guarantees that whatever you are signaling can see the light. I need a random sketch guy to appear. Just because you're drinking water doesn't mean you're safe. You need to take in salt as well. I've seen this kick people's asses big time. They drink and drink and drink water but still overheat/throw up/pass out because they didn't take in any salt or electrolytes. I didn't learn until I started taking holidays to hotter places than normal that I can be quite sensitive to the heat. I thought I was doing a good job looking after myself and drinking plenty of water, but 2 holidays in a row I ended up throwing up from the heat and honestly feeling pretty crappy. After the second time I did a bit of research how to better look after myself. Again, I was drinking plenty of water so I wasn't dehydrated, and found out that throwing up from the heat can be a symptom of drinking too much water without replenishing the salts. Started making sure to drink things like Gatorade and adding little sports salts replenishment to my water and haven't had a problem since. If you are lost in the wilderness, if you have shelter and a source of water, and if you have reason to believe people will be looking for you, you are usually better to stay put than to try to find your way out. Wandering around lost, you expend a lot of energy. You could easily get into a far worse situation, and anyone looking for you will likely start at your last known or expected location, which, if you are lost, you might be wandering farther from. This is not always the case. It depends on if you are injured or not, and the nature of the injuries, on your relative safety where you are at, how far you are relative to your expected or last known location, how visible you are, and a number of other situational factors. It is often worth a low-risk climb to a better vantage point if possible. People have died a few hundred meters from a road which could have led them to safety. The ability to weave. Looked at as more of a craft than a survival skill. But my grandma taught me that if you can weave, you can make clothing, shoes, traps, shelter, etc. with nothing more than the vegetation on hand. This was hammered home later when watching that show with naked survival people. The guy harassed the girl because she spent most of the first 2 days weaving, but in the end he had to be taken out because he was sick, yet there she was having crab for dinner. Naked and afraid. My son and I love that show. You can really tell who is and isn't prepared for it. What would have been your answer or question? Leave it in the comments below. Slap that like and subscribe button for more, and check out the link in the video description for even more answers. Peace out, and catch you in the next video.